Welcome back, everyone. Previously, in the last tutorial, I showed us how to create headings where we were seeing the different sizes of headings. We saw H1, H2, the H3, the H4, the H5, and the H6. Then we saw how to write text paragraph using the paragraph tag. After that, we went on to see how to start creating content with those elements, and then we now delved into looking at list where we saw the ordered list and the unordered list, and this is the result we have about the past videos regarding headings H1, H2, H3 to H6, and then the different text we created and the different types of list items that we can, or list systems we can have. So let's take a step further and then learn how to create shadows. Shadows are very, very important. So let's go over to our Figma canvas and then create a new frame. Let's do desktop. All right, let's add that, and then let's see different shadows we can create. First, I'll create a box shadow. I'm going to style this, give it a feel of yeah, let's do that, and then let's create a shadow effect. Now from here, and what we're about to do in Figma here, we'll be able to know how to create our shadow effect in our independent development environment, that is in Visual Studio, such that we can even replicate it on the website. Now by default there is a shadow already here, but let's look at the properties of this shadow. We see X to be equal to 0, Y equals to 4, the blur equal to 4 also, and we are seeing the color of the shadow. What does this mean? This means the X and Y means position. It's called offset. Let's create another container. This time like this. Let's give it a feel of yes, something like that. We have a frame here, a container here. Let's call this container 1. Okay, I'm not going to put a space, container 1, and then let's rename this to container 2, right? So this is container 2. This color the mouse is on. Now let's give it a shadow effect. Now let's increase the Y offset. You can see the difference now, right? And then increase the blur. That's the blur. And then let's increase the the X offset. Now these are two scenarios, right? These are two different scenarios. Now I'm going to combine them and give them an auto layout so they can be on the same line, and I'll do that with the Shift A key shortcut, or I'll come here to your layout and switch on the auto layout. Now they are centered, they are aligned to the center, right? That's one. Let's do another box, another shadow. Let's copy what we have here first and select the first box or the first container. Let's give it this color. Yep. And then let's give it a simple property, additional, yeah, something like that. And then let's change the direction of the shadow while we increase the blur also. So we are seeing 3 different containers, right? These are 3 different containers. And then the last type of shadow I want us to talk about is a shadow you can give to a text. So let's do Angle Learners are progressing with their codes, their code development. Let's increase this to 56. This is good. Let's increase the weight. Yeah, something like that. Now, for this, we need to do something. If we are going to give it a text shadow, now you can see the shadow effect, right? The Y offset value is 4, the blur value is 4 also, and all of these are in pixels, right? But for us to be able to create a good contrast, let's give it an outline, a white outline, yeah, and probably increase it by 3, so it looks more soft. The shadow looks more soft and definitely more obvious. Anything 2 is better off, and then let's decrease this to, yeah, that's better. Now these are the different types of shadows we'll be looking at shortly, and the properties are here for us also. So with this, let's go back to Visual Studio and get started. All you have to do is come back to Visual Studio. I'm going to create a new file here, and I'll call this box shadow tutorial .html. Your extension type is very, very important. Now this is what we have, a blank environment to start coding in. Don't forget, let's create the boilerplate and call this box shadow. That's the title for us there. Yep, just like that. Now how do we go about this first div? The first thing you need to understand that it's a container, and we create containers with divs. So let's go into the body. For container 1, we just type the first div, right? Let's type it manually, div, the greater than sign, and I have this now. If we open this in the live server, let's save. If we open this in the live server, it's going to be blank. There's nothing here. There is nothing here, right? And that's because we have not done anything. We've only created a blank container. So how do we start styling what we have here in Figma and replicate it on the website? So let's check this out. The first thing we want to do is identify the properties of this container. The width is about 361. The height is about 367. So let's go back to Visual Studio now, and within the first, the opening tag, because there are two tags like we've shared over and over again. This is the opening tag here, and this is the closing tag. So within the opening tag, after the last word, which is V, create a space, and let's say style, because we are doing inline styling. We have not entered CSS, right? When we enter CSS, or when we get to CSS, we will do all of this in CSS way. But right now, we are still in HTML. So it's good to master how it is done. When you get to CSS, it won't be a problem at all, because you'll just be calling element, and you'll be calling you'll be calling element. That's what you'll be doing. And then you'll be calling selectors. So the width, the first property is the width. That's what we are going to do. It says 361 pixel. That's the first property. Give it a comma. The next property is height, right? You give it a semicolon. Then the next property, after each declaration or after each property, you give it a semicolon. Then the next one is the height. The height says 367 pixel. Now, even at this, we are not going to see anything in the live server. On the website, we won't see anything. So what can we do to now see what we have been doing it's time to give it a color, and this is a color code here. Let's fill it up. So create your color and paste the code here using the hash, but nothing happens because we've not given it a property. This is the property we are calling, and this is the attribute. So we are supposed to say color, background color, just like that. Yeah, and your semicolon. Now save. That's why you have to be very careful of typo errors. Now, when we go back to the Visual Studio, see what we have here. We have that div, that container that we created in Figma. Now, don't forget that we have two containers and they are both in a frame. Look at it here. Frame 1 contains two containers, which are container 1 and container 2. So let's go to container 2 now and create container 2. The first thing we want to do is we know that we are going to need a color. So let's copy the color here and go back to Visual Studio. Yep, create a div. That's clear by now. Style, because we want to style it, and we call background color. Paste the code here. Yeah, then the next property we want to check out is the height and the width. The width says 246, the height says 464. So let's go back to the environment, call width 246 pixels. We call the height 464 pixels. Am I correct? Yep. So let's save our work and go and check out the browser. Perfect. This is very, very perfect. Now, but in a way, they are styled horizontally here in Figma, not vertically. This is vertically, right? But this is horizontally. So let's style them horizontally also. And we do that by bringing the two of them into a container. This is it. The two of them are inside a container here, and we aligned it horizontally. So we have to put them in a container also in the browser or in our development environment. So let's copy this. Then we create a div, right? And paste the two containers that we've created. So it's like, this is the first layer of container. This is the parent container, and these are the two children. And that's how it works when you're coding or you're building interfaces, right? You need to understand how they flow in terms of hierarchy, right? So with this now, this should be aligned. Now it's not working. What I need to do is I need to flex it, right? So we come back to div. I would like to use the CSS flex property here. So display and say flex. Automatically it should go to the horizontal direction, and then we need to give it a gap. The gap here says 97. This is it. You can see. Okay, so we've increased it, so 134 pixels. So let's go back there and say gap 134 pixels, and now we should see the difference. I believe this is very, very understandable. It's straightforward. Now the main gist of this tutorial is the box shadow, or the different types of shadows. So let's quickly go over that. Now to create a box shadow for this, it's still within the styling element we are being working with. So all you have to do is come here and say, okay, let me not break it down. Let's say box shadow. You're calling box shadow. And don't forget what we add here in Figma. We add different properties, and let's go over it again. We add the X property, the Y value, the blur value, right, and the color. And that is the same way it will work in the Visual Studio when you're building it. You have to call the X offset, the Y offset, the blur value, and all. Now let's go over that. Let's replicate that. The very first value will be the X offset, which currently in Figma is 0. The next will be the Y offset, which is 4 pixels. Then the value for the blur. The value for the blur says 4 pixels also. 4 pixels and the color code. So we are going to come here. I think we should do this in RGB. Yeah. So the RGB value is 000 and an opacity of 25. So let's go back and call RGB, but usually I will just do 333. Yes, something like that. Let's check this out first before I make adjustment to it. So you can see the shadow now. Very, very thick. It's thick because here in Figma, there's a transparent already. If we give it 100%, it will be thick also, like you can see. So that is why it is thick on the website, but I'm going to adjust it by just coming here and reducing it a little bit, just a little bit. Save your work using Ctrl and S or Command and S, and let's go back to the browser and see. And you can see that it is very, very soft now. So for those of us that might not see this properly, let's create it for the second container here, right? And the value for that is the X offset is 23, Y is 18, blur is 20. So let's go back there. We call background, box color, box shadow. Box shadow, we say the X offset is 23 pixels. The Y offset is 18 pixels. So why 18 pixels? Now what this basically means is on the X direction, give it a shadow effect at 23 pixels on in the direction from origin. This is the origin. The beginning of the container is the origin. So from here, shift it 23 pixels on X axis. Then also shift it. We have 18 pixels on Y. So from the top, push it by 18 pixels vertically. That's what we have here. Let me push it longer. Let's say we have 48. And you'll see the difference. So you see how long it is now, right? That's pushed it from the beginning, the origin here of the container, and push it further, 48 pixels further away from it. Then the next value we'll now give it will be the blur effect, the blur value. And the blur value here says 22 pixels. 22 pixels. Let's see how that looks like. You can see it's now blur. It's no longer sharp the way it was some seconds ago. And then the next thing, I'll just copy this color code here. Yes, just like that, and paste. Save your work and let's check it out. Now it's better, but of course we can adjust it. So these are how to give your containers box shadow. So the final box that we have here, let's just see what's the difference. The only thing difference is the direction and the fact that this has corner radiuses. Corner radius, right? How these are sharp edges, the edges here are rounded. That's how we say it, rounded edges. So all we have to do is check the properties again. By now you should have mastered what we want to do. We have the width, we have the height, we have the color, and the effect. Why is it not giving? Okay, sorry. The effect. This is the effect, right? So let's see, we are using a negative offset value here for both x and y direction. So let's check that out. The next thing you have to do is come back to your Visual Studio. Don't forget you are starting outside the parent div now. So this is going to be another div, and we are going to call these. We're going to say the properties are 361 and 367. So let's style width is 361 pixels, then the height 367 pixels. The next thing we want to do is add the background color, and the background color is A11250. Come here and paste it here. Let's save that and go and check it in the browser. Perfect. Now this has a border radius of 32. So all we have to do is come here and call border radius 32 pixels, and you are done with the first stage. Check it out and see the difference. So all your styling will be done by calling the style reference. You have to declare it first, and then everything will now be inside the quotation mark. You can see the double quotation mark. Everything you want to do will be inside the quotation mark. Next, we want to give it the box shadow now. Box shadow. The box shadow, and the value for the box shadow is -25 for the X value, -21, and the blur 25. So let's say -25 pixel. And what this will show you is that your blur effect can work in both the positive direction and negative direction. Now you're not seeing anything because we've not declared the color, right? You've not declared the color. So let's declare the color of the shadow. Of course, all I just have to do is complete for the Y, say -23 pixels. The blur effect says 25.6 if I remember properly. And then the color, I'll just call the color here. Let's give this color. Let's change it a little bit. Yeah, that should be obvious. And let's see what we have. So you can see that it is the direction of the shadow is to the left hand side, right? To the left compared to the right. So your effect can go on both the positive direction and the negative direction. Actually, for here, this is positive Y. For here, look at it. It's positive. It will be in the positive direction. But when it goes up, it's now the negative direction, right? So that's a good practice to remember. Now, the final part of this tutorial is how to style text, because if let's do something, let's come here and write h1, right? And say, let's copy the text from here and paste it here. Of course, you would see it in your browser, definitely. You can see, let's increase it. Don't forget, by now, you can master, you say style, and you call font size. Let's say the font size is 72 pixels. It definitely has to become bigger now. Yeah, you can see that this is very, very perfect. But let me reduce it a little bit to something like 68 or 66 pixels because of what I want to show you. Good. Now, if we give this, let's just copy a box shadow effect here, right? Let's copy this box shadow effect and come in here and paste. Check out what happens. Now it creates a background on which the text rests on. So it's creating a shadow for the entire div. You know, this is a standalone element, unlike links. Links can flow on the same side, but block elements create their own. They take up their own space. That's the word. They take up their own space. So the entirety of this element is having a shadow, but as a div. So the next thing we want to look at is how to give it a stroke. You can see a stroke of white value 2 now, or you can say the weight of the stroke, right? So let's go back to the title and say we call something called WebKit text stroke. The value is 2, right? 2 pixels, and the color is FF like white. But then you won't see this. You won't see it here in the browser because, of course, the background is white. But you can see that it's taking effect, right? So what you can do now is add the shadow for the text. You remember earlier what we did was we saw that if we give it a box shadow, it's going to style it as a block element, right? But this time we want to give the shadow, the text itself, its own shadow to reflect around the text. So I'm going to just reduce this a little bit, or no, let's still leave it, right? Let's leave it and then call the shadow. And just like we have the box shadow, what we'll do is the text shadow. And the way we have the x-axis, y-axis, everything, similarly, we'll replicate it here. Let's check it in Figma. It says 2, 4, but the value of x is 0, 2, 4, and 0, 0, 2, and 4. So let's go back here and say on x-axis 0, on the y-axis 2 pixel, the blur value is 4 pixel, and we are going to copy this color code here and bring it here. Save your work and let's see what we have in the browser. Now you can see the text shadow is taking effect, right? And maybe I should change the color a little bit to something you can see, and you can see the shadow all around it now. So this outline is too thick, so let's give it something like 1 and see what it looks like. This is better. So this is how to give text and containers shadows. There are other more methods of giving elements shadows. We have, you can see the styling images. Maybe you want to give an image its own shadow. It's going to be like this. But talk of a PNG image, right? You have to give it what we call the drop shadow. We are not looking at that right now, but we'll definitely look at it in the future. But I believe that you've been able to learn one of the things from here, and you can practice this, add it to your code or whatever project you are building, and see how you get better at it. So with this, we have come to the end of this tutorial, and I do hope that you really gain a lot. And with that, I believe that I'll see you in the next video, where we'll be talking about another property of HTML and how we can increase our knowledge in the web development space. Until I see you in another video, keep learning and don't stop doing, because you become better by doing. Cheers, guys.